Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again. Welcome back to our Mastering Profit Through People, our Masterclass series for 2024. It's our exciting Masterclass series brought to you by Profit Master Global Outsourcing. My name is Paul Jansz, with a croaky throat today, and it's fantastic to have you guys here joining us today. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, because I know there's a lot of you, given the topic, I know there's a lot of you joining us with team members. I know there's a lot of firms that I've spoken to about this particular workshop today. And let me share a little bit about this Mastering Profit series and how it all became to become what it is today. Over the last couple of years, Profit Masters CEO and founder Richard Croker and I have done a podcast series, a 6-part podcast series, talking numbers, mastering profit. And I think we decided to raise the bar earlier this year and say, well, how do we just make these a little bit more live, a little bit more interactive, and people can learn a little bit more about, again, all the different topics that we've put together based on people, whether that be people management, people systems, people processes. This is what this whole series is about. So if you've missed anything, like I mentioned before, if you just joined us and you've missed anything and you'd like to go back and have a look at this, check everything online on our socials. So our socials has always got information about our past shows and, more importantly, our YouTube page. So if you check out YouTube, type in Profit Master Global Outsourcing, and up will pop all of the Mastering Profit Through People Masterclass series. It's a bit of a mouthful when you've got a sore throat. Now, let me just cover off a little bit about who is Profit Master Global, because I think that's an important one. So Profit Master provides your business with the opportunity to grow your remote-based team members as an extension to your onshore team. So they're based in the Philippines. They work with dedicated quality people. And I think this one is probably the most important one if you're considering remote teams. Some of you online may already have remote teams. And the fact is that some of the numbers that Profit Master has done over the last 12 months show that you can have an increase in productivity by 20%, and you can decrease your costs by up to 40%. Now, again, those numbers alone are good enough for me to ask the question, is it worth me investigating how I can grow my remote team? Now, knowing a lot of, whether it be the financial services, whether it be the accounting, I know we've got a broad range of different businesses online today, but we know good people are hard to find. So if you can bring your remote team through, and that's what this session is all about, and then teach them the right systems and processes to go around that, I can only imagine that productivity increase would be greater than 20%. And the cost decrease, obviously, by 40%. So it adds a nice little profit margin to your people model, which is more important. Now, today is a really, really important topic, and I know every single business needs to have this in place. It's something that I'm pretty passionate about, because it's something, not only have I assisted a number of accounting firms and financial planning firms, I suppose when I started my business back in 1999, to build better systems and processes to grow. And that was the key thing. Not only did I teach it, but I've actually done it as well. When I led a business, I led a private equity business that was, sort of 55 people, $55 million, like big businesses. But in order to grow, whether you're small or whether you're large, it doesn't really matter. But in order to grow, you need to have good processes and systems. And that's what this is all about. So hopefully we can share over the next 55 minutes or so. There'll be time for questions where we're going to share a lot with you. So stay tuned. My masterclass guest, let me get to this wonderful person who is going to share a lot of information with us today. So workplace process expert. We're going to get to exactly what that means. And author of The Freedom Machine, which is entitled Making Your Business Run Like a Well-Oiled Machine, with or without you. Kerry Anne Nelson, welcome to our masterclass. How are you?
Hello, I'm very well. Thank you. Very, very well. How are you, Paul? With your sore throat?
Wonderful. Yeah, look.
I think it's a very big compliment to be compared to a drag queen. You're a pretty man. That works. That works.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take that. I'll take that. It's a funny thing in between all the sort of things you do, and obviously the change in weather and conditions, and I don't know. It's
yeah,
awesome.
You've been busy too.
Yeah, that doesn't help with travel. Now, let's talk processes. Let's talk workplace process architect.
Yes.
Why do you do what you do?
Oh, why do I do? Not what do I do? Okay, why do I do it? I'll give you the very short version of this story. So in 2013, I was in business with my husband. We were running an e-commerce website, And we'd been in that particular version of that business for 10 years. We'd been in e-commerce for longer, but that particular platform, we were selling vacuum cleaner spares online, completely unsexy, but great for online because people didn't want to go shopping for vacuum cleaner spare parts. They wanted to just click and have it done. And so, we really rode the wave of e-commerce really coming to the fore. Anyway, very long story short, we were great at attracting new business. We were great at order fulfillment. We were great at striking deals with suppliers, et cetera, et cetera. All of those things for growth, that worked really, really well. And we did a really great job. But the back end of our business was a mess. And even though we'd been in business for 10 years, not only had we never made a profit, we were actually losing money. And my husband was incredibly stressed, so much so that in 2014, at 37 years of age, he had a very unexpected heart attack.
Wow.
From the stress and the anxiety. He'd been building up some really unhealthy self-care, let's say, habits, and self-medicating type of habits. And so it just didn't work. And I was left with this business that I knew had a gem of success in it. We never had a problem with attracting and maintaining business. It was always, let's squeeze the profit out of it. And so we'd had built up all of this debt over those years and never actually made that profit. And so over the next 6 months, I got really busy doing what I naturally do, which is start to run my admin, run my management, run my processes really tightly. And I hired some new people, changed things around that people were doing for me so that I could lead from the front and save this ailing business. I'd already lost my husband. I didn't want to lose everything else in a bankruptcy situation. And so in the first 6 months, I'd worked my way back out of debt. And then in the following 12 months, the end of 2014, I ended up selling that business for a profit. And the handover took a week. It was 5 days of here's how you do this thing. And now here are my process manuals. And it was the most smooth, beautiful handover. The freedom I experienced, I cannot even describe. But that's why I do what I do, because I often say to people, your business may not be a matter of your life and death, but certainly it's a matter of your life. And it's a matter of being able to say what really matters in my business for my team, and then also what matters in my own life as a business owner, that I want to enjoy the autonomy and the freedom of success. And you can't have that unless you sort out your operational management.
Yeah, it's so true. And, again, I know, what are we? We're 5 minutes in, and the value in what everyone listening to that should take away is enormous. And if you're sitting there thinking of, again, one of the great things that I used to do when I used to get engaged as the coach, which I still do, and to teach these systems and processes, which you're going to learn in a fantastic hour today, is the value that it brings to your life. And that was one of the key messages I just took out of that just then, Kerry Anne, you talking about. And we all do, as business owners, we all carry a lot of stress, because you know what? Free things don't put food on the table for our kids. So we've got to make profit. And at the end of the day, you start thinking about, I know another guest of mine only a few months ago said, if you're not making good amount of profit, well, then it's probably an underpaid job. And then you're also carrying a heap of debt that goes with it. And that's pressure, that's stress.
Yes.
So you are 100% right, because then what enabled you to do that, I'm tipping, is that because you built up the systems and the processes, you were able to do a handover to a new owner without you being in the business.
And new team members, because I needed to change the way that things had run. So yeah, both of those purposes were served.
Brilliant, brilliant. I'm gonna give people a few, and if look, there's the chat bar through here as well to everyone online, and there's the Q&A. So if you want to chat about anything, please chat away. If you want to ask questions, maybe throw them in there. If you've got a thought process, you go, I need to ask a question, throw it into the Q&A, because we will have time at the end of this to come back as well. I'm going to throw out a couple of different books, and if people have read them, please say, yep, I've read it. Throw it in the chat bar. Tell me if you haven't read it. The first one is The E-Myth. We go back years and years and years ago, the Michael Gerber way. I don't know if anyone's actually seen Michael live. I can remember seeing him years and years and years ago. It was one of the books when I first started, one of the roles that I started at. I never read a book till I was 29 years of age. Interesting, huh? And I had to read 3 books in 3 weeks, which was challenging. And one of them was The E-Myth. And it was all about building systems, or the thought process of moving from, how do you move from the technician to the manager to the entrepreneur, being The E-Myth, and how to build systems and processes. And again, just a brilliant book. If you haven't read it, I always say to my accountants that I was coaching at the time, give it to your clients, give it to your business owners. We find it so hard nowadays. We find it so easy for anyone just can go and set up a company. Suddenly they're a director of a company
Yeah.
and they probably don't know the directive responsibilities that come with that. They're usually the technician, and how do they move from the technician to the manager to the entrepreneur? It's an interesting one. And I'll guarantee you, for most people that read it, about 20 pages in, you'll say, I think he's talking about me. And how do you change that mindset? And again, that's what we're here to talk about. So let's get into that. If you haven't read The You Myth, please go and do it. And I quoted another one here, and that's the late Stephen Covey. Fortunately, we lost him a few years ago. And again, brilliant book, brilliant author, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Let's begin with the end in mind here, which is what he talks about. So Kerry Anne, given your level of knowledge, your expertise on the subject, and to any business owner, when you get this right, and I know you touched on it a little bit there, what does the end look like? When you get this right, how does it feel? What will it give the business owner that has been, and some business owners have been trying to do this for 20 years, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. My top 3 values are love, freedom, and empowerment. And so for me, the best, biggest, most valuable reward that I get out of having a business that runs like a well-oiled machine is freedom. It's freedom. Now, I actually love my work. I love working. You'll see me here working a lot, but I do that because I can. I don't do it because I have to. And that's such a massive difference. Things run, and I show people how to run things because I know how to do it, and I want to share that love around. I want other people to experience that freedom. So freedom doesn't necessarily mean, on a cruise for 3 months or out on a yacht or whatever. Freedom means that you choose whatever you want to choose. It means having a business that can pivot and scale really quickly because people already know how things are done. So if you implement change from a process-driven methodology, then what you'll find is that people can pick up the new way quickly and move and flow and run. It also means higher engagement and loyalty from your staff because they're empowered. So they start to perform really, really well, not only because you're giving them proper training and providing them with operations that work well, but if you're doing this properly, you'll put the operations management into their hands. So they're starting to capture their own processes and finding the most efficient way. So you can see those values coming through for me in why I do what I do. It is just so rewarding, not only for me, but of course, every single business owner who decides to really pick this up and make it a priority. They get to have that freedom of choice, loyal staff, and a business that can truly grow and scale.
Yeah, well said. And it's an interesting one. So for all of you that are online, challenge for you, just throwing it out there, going off script for a second. So the word freedom, maybe think about that. Maybe give a lot of thought to what does that mean to you? Sort of Kerry Anne mentioned a couple of little things there. It doesn't need to be a cruise, as she mentioned. Be nice, but and that was sort of one of the questions that I always used to pose to the firms that I used to coach. Could you take 3 months out of your business tomorrow?
That's great.
Okay, so. And the answer was always no. So it was, well, that's what we need to build, because at the end of the day, you're carrying all this pressure on your shoulders. You take it home with you. It can affect your relationship at home. You're never there for the kids. That's something that, you have the ability to change. So exactly what you said then was absolutely outstanding. But think about what's freedom to you. So that could be something as a really nice little takeaway to ask you, your team, and come back to, well, what does that mean? And then how do I start building freedom if that's what I want? So it's an important one there. Let's get
Beautiful.
into.
It comes back to what Simon Sinek says about start with why, doesn't it? Start with why.
100%.
Why are you doing this? Yeah.
Yep. Why are you doing this? And again, there's another, geez, we're throwing them out there in the first 15 minutes. Michael Gerber, Stephen Covey, Simon Sinek. So brilliant. Again, just brilliant people that we should all be, consuming exactly what they're telling us. And then we need to work out how to apply it. And again, if you haven't heard of Simon Sinek, go and Google Simon Sinek, S-I-N-E-K. I'm pretty sure it is. And his first one is just about the why and how we tend to market the what, but people buy the why. So it's a really, really interesting one. And he gives a great example of Dell and Apple and why we're all on Apple watches and Apple phones and Apple computers. So again, going a little bit off track. So how about I get this back on track? Moving into Activating teams. Let's talk about activating teams, whether they're onshore teams, whether they're your remote team. I see more and more businesses. I was at a lunch last week and we were talking about the importance of, businesses moving to remote teams. So how do you activate a team successfully?
Yeah, great. It's a really good question, because the how is where things happen. The why is great motivator, but yeah, let's get into the how. So Michael E. Gerber, my favorite business book of all time, says the system runs the business and the people run the systems. So if we start from that system-driven approach, where it's not we're not looking at people, we value humans, we value their input and their contribution to the business. Of course, we couldn't run the business without the people, but what we need to do is see that it is the system that's actually running that business, and then the people are merely operators of. And so what that does is it makes, I'm going to loop back around to your question, because what that does is make the people operators of a system that they can be replaced, which is really important for business continuity. But how do you get people engaged in the first place into those systems? It's about putting your team first. It's not saying the system is more important than you. It's flipping back around and saying, because you are so important, because we want you to be so rewarded at work, so successful at work, productive at work and fulfilled and engaged, we're going to put this system first. We're going to set you up for success. We're going to make sure that we're doing everything we can to support you, creating winning outcomes for yourself so that you can feel fulfilled, so you can feel valuable. And then, of course, for the rest of the team that you're working with, and ultimately to grow the business. But it's actually about valuing, I think, the people in your team, and saying, but then aligning those two things. See, there's not an opposition between the process and the person. In fact, there's a beautiful harmony that needs to happen and needs to be embraced in the business by saying, it's because you're so important that this matters. We want to make this easy for you. We want to set you up for wins, a consistent stream of wins. So that I think is where the starting point is.
Okay, that's brilliant, because I think, and this is where the art of communication sometimes is so important as well, because if you move too far into processes and not explaining to team members exactly why we're doing it and the importance of doing it, you won't be able to activate your team successfully, because at the back of their mind, they're probably thinking, oh, do they want to replace me?
100%.
So you've got to, it's so important that you get the language right.
Yeah.
And you're right. And you just gave everyone a line, just a perfect way to do that just then, to actually speak to them about how important. And I think you can then align that. I actually do this a lot with aligning it to where do you want to be in the business?
Yeah,
so,
great.
Most people don't just want to stay in their seat. Some people do, don't get me wrong, but most people, especially if you're in a growth type of business, that, you want people to think like entrepreneurs, that, fantastic if they want to leave your business to run their own business as well. I used to encourage that, because it's the mindset that you want for them to think like that. And then they bring their team along with them. And I think they're the great things that everyone can start sharing with regards to, well, where would you like to be in this business? Do you want my role? I used to say to people, do you want my role? Because I think that's great. You're the type of person I want in my business if you want my role.
100%. That's great.
That. Yeah.
Richard Branson says, train your people so well that they could leave, treat them so well that they wouldn't want to.
There you go. And he's brilliant.
He is brilliant.
So let's try and get some of this magic together, I suppose, as business owners. And I think most people online would be business owners, but there's also team members that are thinking, well, if they're in senior positions, that how do I help? And I know I haven't come across too many businesses that say, when they got senior team members saying, what can I do to help? And I suppose everyone needs to be on the bus for the bus to go in the right direction. So as business owners, we all want them to, I suppose, work faster, achieve more. What's the magic ingredients that makes all of that happen?
Yeah, okay. I think we need to start with having an ambitious vision. And the reality is that if you have started a business, you haven't just started it because you want to run your admin, because you want to work 50 hours a week and be stressed and worried and time poor and profit poor. No, you started your business because you wanted to build something significant. You started your business because you wanted to make a difference in your world, in your industry, with your particular skills and experience. And so sharing that vision is vital. Because it fills that people part of the transition to becoming a process-driven business. So people need to attach to something. People need to know, why am I showing up? Why does my work make a difference? And unfortunately, only 35% of people working as employees say that their boss is even inspiring at all, which means there are basically 2/3 of people coming to work thinking, you know, I'll just do this for my paycheck. And that's the last attitude that we want there. So starting with an ambitious vision is essential to bringing people on board. And then once you've set out that vision and you keep revisiting and looping that into all of your everyday operations and your conversations and your staff meetings and your goal setting, once you've got that ambitious vision out, then you come down to establishing a culture of change, because things can't stay the same. And if we've seen what's happened, oh my goodness, in the world over the past 12 months, technology has just done a complete turnaround. I was about to swear, a complete turnaround. And now we're looking at robots being able to do so many of our jobs, and it's only going to increase. That whole aspect of our world is only going to increase. So if we set that vision, but the people then working towards that vision with us need to embrace change, because it's going to take change to be able to achieve it. And the platform from which we're operating now is not the one we're going to be working from in 3 years, 5 years time. So if we want to have our people continuing to grow and accelerate our growth, then we absolutely need to have them changing and growing with us. So once we've got that, then we need to make sure we're tapping into the expert support that is available around us. If you knew how to create exponential growth, you would be doing it already, right? Everyone wants to have that. So making sure that we're tapping into that expert support, taking on mentors, learning from the best, learning from people that have done it before you. I've got another little stat here that 92% of successful business owners say that mentors enhance their business growth and their even ability to survive. So really tapping into who's who in the zoo of being able to advance my growth by tapping into what they already know. 2 more, strategic tools, being able to implement the tools you need. Now, this might be software, it might be hardware, it might be additional learning that you then implement a new process or a new resource. But implementing those strategic tools is going to bring this whole thing to life for you. And then being consistent is the final thing. Making sure that once we've implemented something, we're bedding it down. We're making sure that the new way is the only way, and continuing to grow from strength to strength without slipping back, without falling into old habits, without thinking, oh, the old way was easier. So consistently applying that new way until we reinvent and do it again and do it again. So that change culture is really important for that, of course.
So just touching on a couple of those.
Yep.
And I had to write them down so I didn't forget.
I've got notes here. I'm not pulling all this out of my head.
When we talk about, let's say you spoke about the importance of the vision, and I think a lot of businesses, I'll say a lot of businesses are very good at that having that big vision and maybe even sharing that big vision. How often do you believe that companies, managers, leaders, owners need to continually going over that, so that again, people tend to forget all the things that we've learned, and then suddenly we've got a couple of new team members that come into that quarter, and then they only do it annually. So no, you think what's the consistency in terms of frequency?
No, I think every time you're connecting, you can be building those things into even the documentation you've got around. I haven't actually done this, I've only thought of it literally right now. I just looked across and saw my Slack channel on another part of my screen, and I thought you could have a very short version of your business vision right there as your descriptor in your Slack channel, right, of your Slack profile. Finding like ways to introduce these artifacts, having your business goals or your business vision or values right there in your email footer, in your process documentation. At the bottom of all of our documents, we've got our Operation Verve values, and it's there, always there. And then when we're meeting, we're referring to them always. We're referring to the goal. We're referring to where are we headed? What are we building here?
Yes.
So it's in staff meetings, it's in reviews, it's in when you're setting up a new project, you're connecting the project, the work that's going to be done to how that's going to enable us to achieve that vision. Yeah, and then in artifacts, in the documentation and place, you can write little snippets of that to keep that alive and keep that spark burning.
And again, to share with everybody, I know for a business I ran on the Gold Coast, we did this. I actually asked the team, I said, how would you guys like to visualize this? You know, so again, it wasn't me telling. And that's the, you know, a lot of team members don't like being told, but it's all about them being creative and coming up with ideas. And they came up with an idea of, and it was a bit way out there, but we ended up doing it. Why don't we paint them on the wall?
Yeah.
And we've gone, okay, so what would that look like? Well, why don't we use this wall when we walk in? So when we walk in the entrance every morning, the first thing we see is it written on the wall, which was our vision. And then we had our values and what those meant. And then every morning we used to have a stand-up meeting every morning for 5 minutes. We would stand up in front of the wall, and therefore we can always refer back to them if we weren't following our values. And I know there's other businesses that have done it as well. I often see them posting stuff on LinkedIn and I see it and I go, love it. I love it because it's just an automatic, yes, that's what we stand for.
Yeah, 100%, because you need that, the people part and the process part holding hands. It's the only way it will really work.
Yep, spot on. And how do you deal with, let's say, the remote side of things? Because we've got, you know, we've got now businesses, I know sort of Profit Master, that's what Profit Master does with the remote teams in the Philippines and providing those quality people. How do you integrate those people into what we're doing, let's say, in the office on the Gold Coast?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I think it's a more concerted effort to build that cultural piece into the business. So having set times to meet, having your Slack chat running, being able to say, right, here are my, if you've got full-time workers and there's a lot of activity going on in Slack, being able to have your downtime in Slack as well, looking after the people, making sure that they're not getting caught up in 300 meetings when they actually just need a few hours to work. But that concerted effort where you need to go out of your way to make those connections happen, because the water cooler moments just don't happen. You don't necessarily have a wall of an office site to put the values up, but like I said, you can put them in the footer of all your documentation. You can refer to them when you're setting up projects. And it's about fostering that human connection when you're working remotely, and then bringing in the vision, mission, goals into your everyday operations. Having Slack chats that are there purely for fun, you know, sharing photos, sharing GIFs, sharing videos. Like if I go on holidays, I'm going to check in with my little team and, you know, do a little video and say, hi, see where I am, just to build that relationship, because they're real humans and I'm a real human. And I want to work with colleagues that are I don't know, they're my friends, but certainly that we are friendly, that they've got a home, they've got a place, to connect. So yeah, you've got to go out of your way for that stuff though. It doesn't just happen. And let's be honest, doesn't always happen in an office either. There are introverts that are going to go out of their way to avoid. There are people that don't want to interact. They're going to go, need to make those opportunities for connection.
Spot on. And I think nowadays, you know, the way that most businesses tell me, sometimes I'm in the city or if I'm in Brisbane, or everyone in Brisbane now knows, I don't think it's in Melbourne as much, but certainly everyone in Brisbane knows the office days. So actually there's 2 days a week that they're in the office and it's a lot busier. And the other days of the week, they are working from home. So whether you're working from home or you've got team members all around the world, you know, the last masterclass, the two teams, one was in South Africa and one was in the Philippines, and the business operates in its main two selling points are Australia and the US. So it doesn't matter where you are, you've still got to make the effort to, from a management and leadership point of view, to make sure that connection takes place.
Yeah, and also looking at measuring outcomes, not hours. And I know it's a bit of a cliche now. I don't want to go and reinvent the wheel here, but it's not about having bums on seats and seeing people, eyeballing people 8 hours a day. It's just, that's so gone. It's about setting the agenda for the day, the week, the month, the quarter, the year, and having that be achieved. The end.
I agree
Mm.
100%. The word I use is expectations.
Yeah,
So
perfect.
what are your expectations as
Yeah.
opposed to hours? Because it doesn't need to, and I used to tell my team this as well. If you can get it done earlier and you've met,
Yes,
cool, have some time off, go to the beach, do whatever you want to do. But if you don't, I expect you to stay behind and finish it as
that's
well.
right. It's your responsibility. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. So from that point of view, because you used change, you spoke about change before, which I think is a really important one, which
Mm.
no one, well, I shouldn't say no one, a high percentage of people don't like change. If you think about what we do, we probably drive the car to the same, if we're going to work, we go the same way every single time.
Yeah.
Um, very rarely do people go, oh, I might try a different way. I might, oh, hang on a minute, that doesn't feel comfortable. So
Yeah.
what's your advice to, again, call it change, call it mindset shift, if you want to call it that? What's
Yeah.
your advice for getting team members engaged in that process of change?
Yeah. I actually wrote an article about this a little while ago that people don't actually resist change, I don't believe. People resist uncertainty.
Ooh, I like it.
If we set up the change with a bed of certainty where we're wrapping up that new thing in positivity, in really clearly defined outcomes, in support around how that change is going to be implemented, how are people going to be affected, what are the benefits of that change, then all of a sudden we're starting to take away the uncertainty that people are actually afraid of. Because it's one thing to say that people are afraid of change, but people also get bored very easily. And
Yeah.
people actually like variety a lot of the time as well. So I don't believe people are resistant to change. I think when we break down what the fear actually is, it's that they're resisting uncertainty. So then my answer to your question is build certainty in a
Build
new
it.
place, in a
Yeah.
new
Okay.
thing, in a new way.
So how would you build certainty then?
Yeah, well, this comes back to my favorite topic of process management. So if we're going to go ahead and implement a new software, say, then we need to have clearly defined project timeline. We need to invite the people that are going ahead and going to be involved in the research, the implementation, and we need to ask them for their input. So involve as many of the leadership as we can, set out a clear project timeline, and then take it to the team and ask for their input. How do they see this? What do they need to feel secure and safe and certain in the throes of this new thing? And then work with them and be there to, there's going to be grievances, yes, because change can be uncomfortable. I'm not going to get all airy-fairy about it. Absolutely, it can be uncomfortable. But if you show that you've got a genuine care, that you are, well, this was the intention, and then especially if it's a new tech install, it always messes up. Like I don't know, a new tech platform that's been implemented that has gone smoothly, right? It doesn't happen, not in my world.
No.
But yeah, no, certainly if there's a new change like that and we hit those bumps along the way, be there for them. Yep, we saw that, we're onto the tech support, we've got this happening. For now, lay low. We're not expecting you to be able to achieve this and this. Take the pressure out of that situation. Because if you've got really great workers, they're going to want to do a good job.
Yeah.
And if they suddenly then can't work, oh, but my value is in doing great work. Oh, but my identity is wrapped up in doing good work. Oh
Yeah.
no, they feel like a failure. And so reassure them, no, this is all part of the process. We embrace change here. This is all just part of it. This has got to get sorted. You're not to blame. We'll keep moving forward.
And I think
So yeah, but it comes back around to managing the process really tightly.
yes, yes, and I think they're really. If you think about, I'll take it back a step.
Yeah.
If we want to grow, yes, we're going to get to at the moment how some team members often talk about. Well, I'm stretched at the moment.
Mm.
How am I supposed to cram more in? I don't have capacity. All these sorts of things. So we'll talk about that. And I'd love to get your view on that.
Mm.
But I suppose the ability to now think about how all that can work in your workplace is so important, because even to the point of think about the people that we're about to employ. We want to grow.
Mm.
Think about the questions we may ask them at an interview.
Mm.
Maybe we can start posing different types of questions around things like,
Clever.
how do you feel about that? How would you adapt to this sort of thing if we did that change? They're just different questions where we can then formulate maybe the type of person we're looking for may be different based on the series of questions that we ask them.
Yeah, that's really, really good. Actually, I like that because then you're attracting the people that are going to embrace that change right from the start.
Yep.
People that are going to respond positively when they're in a sticky situation.
Yep. Yep. And
Mm,
unfortunately, we tend to, and I'll talk about the accounting industry that I've been in for 25 years, but we tend to go out and attract, let's say we're looking for a senior manager. That senior manager's got 5 years experience at another firm. They want to bring what they've been taught. And yeah, we want elements of that to add to our systems and processes, but we don't want to be using their systems and processes. We want them to be using our firm's systems and processes.
yes.
So again, really important question to ask them. How would you feel about if you came into the business? We want to bring across some of your IP that you've already using, but how are you going to feel about using our systems and processes, which may be different to yours?
Yeah, square pegs and square holes.
Spot
Mm.
on.
Yeah,
Spot on.
exactly. That cultural alignment is everything. The values alignment, it is just so important. It's that old adage of what is it? It's not really an adage. People say it's so hard to find good help these days. And I think it really comes down to finding the people that are aligned with how you operate, with what's important. Yeah, I agree. I agree entirely. Having said that, there are some really fabulous workers out there that are burned because the place is running like a bowl of spaghetti, so
Yep.
there's that too. I think both are very important.
And team members are just, oh, don't know why I'm going to use this analogy, but I'm going to use it. God, you love lives, don't you? It's a bit like dating, really. You've
Yeah.
got to get out there and ask questions, and you got to find which one is going to best suit you. But just because you've been on a couple of dates and it didn't work out, it doesn't mean you don't go on the third one.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
it's a constant little, formula of making sure. Like one of the things that we did at our business was, even if I wasn't searching for people, I
Mm.
was always interviewing for people,
Oh, that's cool.
if
I
that makes
like
sense.
that.
Yeah, so there's an ad running all the time because
Mm.
we want great people coming to our business. So, and that was one of the things that, and we always used to, it was like, well, we're not searching for people, but I'll guarantee if I find the right person with the right attitude that wants to develop, I'll find you a role.
That's really clever.
Different mindset as opposed to the reactive. Oh, someone's about to leave. They're just giving notice. Oh shit, we've got to find someone.
Yeah,
It's
true.
a different thought process.
Yeah, very much so.
Let's go back to that question I spoke to you about with regards to team members saying that they always feel like they're stretched, they're at capacity. But
Yeah.
we know the role of a manager and a leader is to create capacity to get more from their team members, which obviously increases revenue and increases profit.
Mm.
What's your view on how that should be dealt with?
Yeah, I really do agree with that. Again, pulling on Michael Gerber's brilliance, he says that the purpose of a business is to attract and keep good customers. So at the end of the day, we need everyone's hands on deck serving what is the ultimate aim, which is to keep that business running, keep the revenue running, keep customers happy and bringing in more. So yeah, we need to bring out the best in our people. There's absolutely no doubt about that. A positive and supportive culture doesn't compromise on the expectations or the output that needs to come out of a good quality team member. So that's true. But it comes down to, again, what we're talking about here today, the how we bring that best, that top shelf performance, says a lot about what we believe about goodness, about values, about the value of people, and about business in itself. And at the end of the day, I think it's about integrity as well. So what I don't like seeing is when people are driving their people, owners or management are driving their team members so hard that they're burning their team, that they're wearing them out, that the expectations are unreasonable, or that wins aren't celebrated. See, the other side of that is that we expect the best, but we don't expect burnout. And when a milestone or a goal is achieved, we reward that. And if it's not being achieved, we support. So I think it all comes down to the belief that I have that a good, strong leadership, culture of leadership starts with every single person owning the fact that they have to be managers of themselves. Leadership starts with leading yourself.
Yes.
If I'm expecting my team to show up on time, to meet deadlines, to be supportive and encouraging, to be organized, to be productive, and I'm not being a model of that, or my leaders aren't being a model of that, then we've got a bit of a discrepancy there, that people won't be able to engage with that outcome. As a little aside, I've got a pet hate of the type of team member that I call a cowboy. And often the cowboy is the person who is oftentimes, they're in sales or marketing, and they're producing such amazing results. They're bringing in such incredible volume of new business, or incredible volume of leads. It can also happen. I've met an IT person who was a cowboy as well, who just had to do it their own certain way. And the challenge with that is that if there's no problem with that one person, it's the example that one person is setting for all the rest of the team that's expected to comply and expected to, toe the line. And so I think when we're leading, we lead from that place of values. We lead from the place of supporting with processes, with rewarding wins, and supporting shortcomings. So yeah, we do need to bring out the best in people, but it needs to come from a place of that positive reinforcement, and setting people up for wins. Yeah, not necessarily berating or punishing.
No,
It comes back to like good parenting, or like good ownership of a dog,
And look, on the flip side of that, I agree. And I'll give everyone an example, give you an example of what we did. And you sort of mentioned sales before, and being in sales for a very long time, and marketing for a very long time, and coaching that element as well. One of the key things that I sometimes find, it's not with everybody, so I'm not throwing a blanket over everybody, but salespeople aren't very good at paperwork.
So true.
So this got identified in a business a few years ago, and it was like, right. So, and one of them came to me and said, PJ, mate, I just freaking hate it. So I just don't want to do it. I said, okay, so what do you think we should do?
Great.
It's a part of your role. What do you think we should do? And he goes, I wouldn't mind a PA.
Yes.
And I said, you wouldn't mind a PA. I don't even have a PA. He goes, but I think it'd be good. And I said, okay. So we got all the sales team together and we said, right, guys, what about if you guys are good at selling? What about if we just made you just great at selling? And all of the let's call it the paperwork, the administrative work, the contracts, the paperwork at the back end that needed to support everything, that they had to follow up. They were just really bad at that. So we said, what about if we put a team to support you to do that?
100%.
And they said, we would love that. And then we've gone, you know what? Let's look at this from a pure numbers point of view.
Yeah.
The more time that they can spend selling, the average hourly rate increases.
Yeah, exactly.
And our administrative remote teams, as an example, well, they could do the back end by building a simple process that they already had in place. And we did it. It worked successfully.
We've just with one of my clients, we're implementing a new sales pipeline and really overhauling the sales pipeline that we're using in HubSpot. And one of the appointment setters is drowning, just isn't understanding the tech, hates writing up the notes, and hates navigating the different screens for different things. And the tech is just a bit of an inhibition to her success and her enjoyment of her work. But she is great on the phone. She is great at booking calls. And the leads that she books, they convert really well. She's so valuable to the team. So what we're doing is setting up a couple of different forms that she can complete the bare bones of information that need to be submitted out of her head into the system. And then the Filipino team are picking that up. And then they're able to go on and send the shipment, make the next booking, send the email, update the CRM, all from the notes that she's doing out of a simple form. So there are ways, process-driven ways to keep salespeople happy and performing, but within the system. And I think that's important.
And I think you mentioned at the start of this as well, and this is where we're moving into this. It is interesting, but we're going to again have to adopt the change, because artificial intelligence is here. It's not going anywhere. If anything, it's going to. But we've got to embrace it to help. And I know I came onto a Zoom session with Sean, might be on the call. I'm not quite sure if he's on this masterclass, but he came on. And funnily enough, and it's called. I'm going to go out and say it. I'm not quite sure. I might have to look it up. I think it's called Otter.
Oh, yeah.
OTTER. And Otter joined the Zoom chat before Sean did. I was like, so where's Sean? So Sean gets on. I go, mate, what's this? He goes, oh, that's our automated. It takes all my notes for me.
Yes.
And I said, what do you mean? He goes, wait till after this. I'll send you the notes. It's an artificial intelligence program. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a program that took all the notes, all the actions. And for
Yeah.
some businesses, they need to have detailed notes. Accountants need detailed notes. Financial advisors need detailed notes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of industries that, can you imagine after at these sort of phone calls, your sales team going, oh, now I've got to remember what the hell, what was, oh, I know they can look at videos and so on, but nowadays we've got the ability, just AI just does all that for us, puts the
Yeah.
actions together, records my voice, records your voice, what I said. And the notes that he sent me afterwards were just mind blowing.
Yeah.
So again, to bring that into play for team members that don't like doing that, I think
Yeah.
again, you know, our topic was around, you know, building a great process-minded culture.
Yeah.
What does that do for your culture?
Oh my goodness. Yes. It keeps people doing what they love doing and performing at their best.
Yep.
Imagine a salesperson has a half-hour sales call, then they've got half an hour of notes. You're literally halving their productivity time in admin that can be done other better, more efficient ways. Can I throw another tool in?
Sure.
Yeah, we're a little bit off track, but it's so worth it. If you're mentioning Otter, Otter was one of the ones I was actually going to mention. So I'm so glad you brought that. So there's another one that's called Tango. Tango.io, I think it is. But if you Google Tango processes, you'll find it. And so what it does, you install the software and then you hit go on Tango. Then you do your normal computer-based process. So it might be entering a new person into the CRM, or invoicing a new client, or setting up someone as a new contact in your Xero or something like that, right? So one of those procedural things that everyone needs to know how to do, but you don't want to go through the process of train this person, then train this person, then train. It's just a waste of time. This can all be bundled up into some videos and into what Tango does. What Tango does, you hit go, then you do the process. Tango actually watches your screen. It doesn't record it. It takes a screenshot every time you do something different. And so you'll have a screenshot of this step 1, step 2, step 3, and then it will make up an instruction of what you've just done. And so it will say, you know, log into Xero or whatever the thing, right? And then you'll go through and do that. And then once you finish the process, you click stop on Tango, then you've got a draft there and you can change the words that go with each of those screenshots. You can't actually change the screenshots because, of course, Tango has created those, but you could go back and take your own screenshot. If I've never seen it miss one.
But it does 90% of the work for you.
It does your process documentation for you.
Yeah.
It is incredible. And the free version, of course, you've got watermarks all over the PDFs and they have to be stored in the Tango platform. But for a very tiny new little business, that's still better than nothing. But the paid version, you can download that PDF and attach it into your task software or your training modules, or however you know organizing that that staff training. So yeah, Tango AI, what AI is doing for us is incredible, and Tango is a really good tool for that. Just to bring us back to that process topic.
Yeah, no, look, it's brilliant, and they're the things that I suppose for people listening to this, it's like, and I'm gonna talk to you about that right now in terms of what's the starting point. You know,
Yeah.
we talk about going back to your book, The Freedom Machine. What's the starting point? But there's so many little things there that now, you know, back when I built systems, I got every individual in their role to build their own system. It used to be a written format.
Yes.
Nowadays, you're right. If you've got technology that can do that for you, like a Tango or like an Otter or whatever it may be, it's there to use that so we can become more efficient.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
you know, we didn't have that 20 years ago. Now we've got it. We've got to use it to our advantage as well.
Exactly. And then the key is organizing those resources, because it's one thing to have Otter spewing out notes all over the place, but you know, if they're just saved left all over the place, then you've created a mess, right?
Yes.
And same with Tango. So you need to have and that comes into my the first part of my answer to your question. You always need to start with structure when you're driving a process-driven business. Starting with structure, making sure that your filing, your emails, your Slack channels, all the different, where you're saving your Loom videos or screen capture videos or whatever, right? Everything needs to come down to being organized into your business department. Every business is going to have a marketing folder. Every business is going to have a client folder. Every business is going to have, or a customer folder, every business, etc. Right? So you get your basic structure down. Then when you're making these resources in Tango or in Otter, you've got somewhere that logically you can put them. You'll have a process folder inside each of those. So even if you're not moving to a software like Monday or ClickUp or one of those things, you've got a logical, common sense place that your processes don't end up being that bowl of spaghetti that I was talking about before.
Yeah, good.
Then once you've got your structure, then you need to have a clearly defined set of roles operating within those structures. So you might only have 2 or 3 or 5 or 6 staff, and you might have some staff wearing multiple hats, but they need to understand from the get-go that they might be working in marketing and admin. Yep. They're not just one person. Their work is not defined by who they are, but what they do. And so clearly defining those roles. Then we come into documenting those roles, which is step number 3. Making sure that we're using those tools. And it might mean that we're going back to old school, writing up step 1, step 2, or at least a checklist, something to record how things are done to really grow and scale. We need to make sure then that accountability is taken care of, that people in their roles are doing what they're meant to do.
Good.
And then finally, we need to maintain those systems. So a process that might have been recorded or written up 6 months ago may very well be out of date now. So having systems to maintain the system is actually a key part of driving a process-driven culture so that people know that they've got that stability underneath them to support and continue to see them thrive.
Brilliant. Now if you're looking for a starting point, there's your starting point. I know we went through that pretty quickly.
There's so much in this.
Well, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of, this is recorded. So for everyone online, this is the beauty of making sure that you've got the ability to sit down and work through this, even with your senior managers and leaders, and say, well, what do we want this to look like? What's our structure look like?
Yeah.
Do we need to review our structure? How do we go back and look at that to make sure that it's set up? And again, from a leader or I'll say from an owner point of view, don't do it me as the owner telling the team members. Get the team members engaged get them to think outside the square. Get them to tell you what they would like to see. That means it's called ownership. They'll take ownership of it. Yes,
that's exactly right. The owner sets the vision, then everything else should be almost from the bottom up in a way.
Spot on.
Great.
Now, there's a couple of quick things I just want to share before I go to your top 3 takeaways, because we're just getting with 5 minutes to go. So I saw a question come through as well. What was that book called? So Jasmine, there was a few books that we mentioned, and there's one coming from David as well. So the book we mentioned, The E-Myth. So the entrepreneurial myth. I've got it sitting around here somewhere if I can find it.
Same.
We also then mentioned 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is by Dr. Stephen Covey. And then what was the third one we mentioned?
Start with Why. Simon Sinek.
And
if we're making a book list, I want to throw another one in, which is called Clockwork by an author called Mike Michalowicz. He wrote Profit First. A lot of people familiar with Profit First. Clockwork it's like the updated version of E-Myth and really easy to read.
Okay, so there you go. So Clockwork. Throw that up there, which is brilliant as well. Thank you, David. He had to leave, so thanks for the quick little message there, mate. So before we go to, let's say, the top 3, one of the things we've been talking about this particular masterclass for quite a while now. So I want to quickly go to a poll, because there was a number of, even in last week's networking lunch, they were talking about this quickly, and they're saying, this is going to be great to learn the information, but how do we now get taught the information?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that Kerry Anne have been talking about is, can we take this to, let's say, a workshop series? So if it's something that you're interested in being a part of, let me just pull this up and I think that's it there. So let us know what we've spoken about. And over the last few weeks, we've spoken about pulling together a 3-hour workshop. If that's something that you may be interested in, okay, it's about, again, we're going to teach you how to build great processes, or that process-minded culture. So we've got Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney. You're getting that now. If you want to fill that out, please let us know. The poll will be up there if that's something you may be interested in. And it's something that obviously we can come back to you on following this particular session. So you guys let us know, please. Again, it's about us asking questions as opposed to telling you guys. I'll let that keep running. So, Kerry Anne, tell us as we look to wrap this up in the next 5 minutes or so.
Yep.
What's your top 3 takeaways? I know there's we've shared a lot. We just went through the books again. Nothing better than a good book list. But what are your top 3 takeaways that you can then share with everybody online? So what are the top 3 that people should start thinking about, whether it's for remote teams, because we spoke about that, the importance of that, as well as onshore teams?
Absolutely. The back end of a business is very comparable, between online and like remote and on-site. So there's a little Chinese quote, a Chinese proverb that I always like to start with my tips, my takeaways, which is the best time to plant a tree was yesterday, of course, but the second best time is today. And so I always say, yes, you probably would have done well if you'd started this 3 months, 6 months, 6 years, 10 years ago, but it's not going to do itself. My first tip is start now. Yep. Pull out these couple of tools that we've been talking about, explore what Tango looks like. Start making little instruction videos, start using Otter to take notes out of your meetings. Start playing with these tools, see how they work, and then see how you can implement them in your business to start driving a process-driven operation. So start now. The second thing is to start actually building those processes. Take a step back out of that business doing mode and start looking at how are things being done, and start looking at what are the steps that people are doing and asking your team. So how are we actually doing that anyway? When we've got a new client, what are we sending them? How does that work? And start to back up, and the reason we do this is because it gives you as the owner or the leader, managers, a chance to jump in with your team and start to activate that vision by saying, how are you doing this? Well, I'm really glad because we want to achieve this outcome and we're looking for this fulfillment of this goal. So how can we make that better? So not just driving processes, because processes on their own don't mean much to very many people, but attaching it to that broader vision by saying, how are we doing things and how can we make sure we're doing them to achieve these goals? And then finally, looped in as well. So the first one is start now. Second one is use process conversations to activate the vision of your business, whether it be the big long-term aim or the goals you've set, of course, a combination of both. And then the third one is engage your team. Don't think that you can start documenting everything yourself. No, most business owners are not going to be looking to do that, but don't start thinking you can start to tell people, I want it done this way and this way, when you're not even listening to how they're doing it or what they know about the best way at the moment in the first place is. So bring your team on board. It's going to create so much more loyalty, engagement, and it's going to get the job done faster. And at the end of the day, that's what we all want.
Spot on. So thank you. Look, if anyone's got any questions, please drop them into the Q&A. So I know there's been a couple in there that we've already answered, but absolutely brilliant. While you were saying that, Kerry Anne, one of the things and I was going to say, make sure you've got the team engaged. And one of the key things, again, we're going to go back over the last probably 45 minutes where we've been talking about this, is what it also creates is empowerment. So, empower the team. If they're coming up with a really good idea, don't put them down. Okay. The old rules of brainstorming, don't put down anything that, even if it sounds silly, it doesn't matter, because I'll guarantee you, if you put people down, they won't give you an answer next time.
Great. You're right.
It's sort of one of those things you just got to, great, more, write them all down, because that's the rules of brainstorming. There's no critique. And the other key one in that is when you do have empowerment, and Kerry Anne touched on it as well, so I'm going to bring this out because I wrote it down. Celebrate wins, give praise. A lot of team members used to say to me, PJ, I've done a great job. I don't even get told it. They don't even tell me I've done a great job. And I go, well, I'll tell you now then, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all they need to hear, or at the end of the session after you've done it, well done, guys, let's keep going. Let's keep that momentum. Momentum builds momentum, and that's what happens.
It's good. 87% of people who quit say that they did so because they weren't appreciated. What you're saying is exactly spot on, Paul.
Yeah. And you know what? It's a bit old school again, but it takes nothing to give someone praise. And again, you think
Yes.
about it in the home. I got 3 boys, 14, 12, and 8. You know, the constant encouragement for them to do things. And I'll guarantee if you encourage key things, they'll do more of it. And when they do more, they get built more, and they get more, and they get more. And then that's how they learn. So it can all start in the house, and then we take it to the office as well.
Great stuff.
Looks like there's no more questions coming through. So hopefully, Jasmine, you got that. David, thank you for that. I'll keep an eye on any more if they keep coming through. But otherwise, look, thank you. Just a quick one on the poll, which is interesting because just having a look at those numbers, Melbourne looks like the number one where everyone is. Thank you for everyone that filled in the poll as well. We got those results. And Melbourne looks like in Melbourne, funnily enough, because Kerry Anne and I are based in Melbourne, we were going to start in Melbourne. So that's something we might send you guys out to see if that's something that you are interested in. If you are, you let us know. All right. Kerry Anne, thank you. I think it's just ticked over to 102, and I tell you what, 60 minutes has gone pretty quick.
Phew.
We always knew this was going to happen, though. We could have jammed, you know, it's again, this could have gone for 2 hours, to be fair. And that's probably why, you know, the conversations have commenced around, well, how can we now teach firms and team members to start doing this as well? So
yes, that's right.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge. I think the what's going to happen next for, you know, the teams and the businesses and the people that want to then jump on the next stage of this is going to be where the magic happens. So look forward to joining you in some of those workshops, which is going to be fantastic.
Thank you, Paul. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. I'm looking forward to continuing with people, make this stuff happen.
Brilliant. Any final comments before we go from you?
Yeah. Have a great day. I have nothing.
We've covered a lot. Look, to all of you guys that have joined us today, thank you very much. Again, it was a huge amount of people that joined us. So obviously it's a topic that you are concerned about, you're passionate about, you want to learn more about. So we hope you enjoyed the last hour. My next masterclass, just sharing, my next masterclass is on Monday, 13 May. It's at 2 p.m. And I'm talking to, again, another brilliant female entrepreneur, and we're talking about the art of decision making. So again, I know a lot of leaders and managers struggle sometimes to make decisions, and we're going to talk about the art of decision making. So if you're free and you can join us, again, that invitation is out there. I know a number of you have already registered. So thank you very much. Signing off till I see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.